Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and I've got a question for you. What do you think they're doing with your DNA? You know that 23andMe kit that you got for the holidays? You were so excited to send your DNA out there with that swab or that clip of hair to find out who you were. And why would anybody care about your DNA? You were so excited when you got it back and you found out where your family was from and what your lineage was. But there is somebody that's interested in who you are. And that somebody is somebody you don't want to be interested in you, and that somebody is Satan himself. Yes, he's looking for a Y chromosome marker that determines whether or not you belong to the line of Aaron. That's right, Aaron of the Bible. Because it's going to be one of his descendants that's going to ascend to the high priest that heads up the Sanhedrin, that calls for the return of Jesus. Now, you know that as long as Jesus is not here, that Satan is the prince of this earth. Well, what if they could weaponize DNA? What if they could target a particular people group, a population, a particular genetic marker? Well, that's real. It's been real for over 40 years, and that is the plot line of the best-selling biblical thriller, The Codist, authored by me, now out in second edition, and we're giving you a special $2.99 on Kindle. It takes you on a journey through this biblical teaching and understanding of Judaism, of Christianity, of Islam, and this diabolical plot to wipe out the lineage of Aaron. Get your copy today, $2.99 on Kindle. Also want to encourage you to visit our website, ignitinganation.com, and click on special offers. You're going to see the cover of my latest book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. Click on that book cover. All right, we're going to give you a pop-up window, ask for your email address, because we've got a gift for you, but we won't send you spam because spam is not kosher, but we will send you the first chapter of this book. We take you on a journey from the natural into the supernatural, where God reveals to us supernatural truths from the ground to the trunk, all the way out to the branches, the leaves, and the fruit of the tree. 7 laws, 7 lessons within each law, an incredible Bible study available to you out in Indonesia, written in Indonesia, being released around the world in multiple languages. Get your copy today. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the author of the new book, Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age, Dr. Emmet C. We'll call him Tom Thompson II. Thompson's late-in-life college football career was neither the beginning nor the end of his claim to fame. During his remarkable life, Thompson, a 9th-degree black belt Taekwondo grandmaster and a former Board of Advisors member of the American Council on Martial Arts, has worked out with Chuck Norris, partied with Elvis, borrowed money from the mob and lived to tell about it, married a beauty queen, had a personal encounter with God. But while he has earned his share of success and accolades, Thompson is the first to admit that he's experienced more than his share of spectacular failures along the way, professionally, financially, personally, and spiritually. With degrees in business management, kinesiology, organizational leadership, strategic leadership, and teaching, Dr. Thompson's purpose is to encourage people of all ages to live healthy and fulfilled lives, to discover and reach their full potential, and to develop a deeper faith in the process. You can find more information at www.91kick.com. Dr. Tom Thompson, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you so much. It's great being here.
Tom, you lived a very, very interesting life. And being a NCAA kicker at age 61, just, what did you say, it's 8 short years ago?
8 short years ago. It seems like 8 minutes ago, frankly.
That you scored, you were the oldest person in NCAA history to score a point after touchdown, to go in the scorebook, the record books as the oldest at age 61.
Yes.
You know, as much as I want to hear your journey to faith, I actually want to hear, before we get to that, what were you thinking?
Well, you know, I'm asked that question quite a bit. And the thing that I was thinking wasn't what most people would imagine. Most people get the idea that I was trying to fulfill a bucket list goal or something along those lines. Actually, what happened was, if you remember, back in 2007, there was a gentleman by the name of Mike Flint, who at the age of 59, he went back to college to finish his senior year because he'd been kicked off the football team. Well, I'm reading that story, and I'm in the health and fitness industry at the time, and I'm right in that genre. And I contacted a co-author and said, what do you think about us writing a book based on the premise that if you maintain fitness throughout your life, you can do that sort of thing? Well, in our concept talks, I sort of threw out, well, you know what, even though I've got a terminal degree, I might still have eligibility. What do you think about me going back to college and trying to make a football team as a kicker? He said, sure, because it wasn't him. And so the next thing you know, I'm sending off emails to the NCAA and whatnot. The biggest hurdle, though, wasn't the NCAA, and it wasn't my age. It was getting my wife to sign on to this thing, because I just finished my doctorate in 2002, and I went 8 years to finish all that. She's saying, "You want to go back to college, and for what?" And I told her it was to write a book, and she says, oh, "Okay, well, I'm good with that." But if just the idea of me going to college to try to play football as something to deal with whatever mid-age crisis I might experience, that wasn't the case.
So here you were, 61 years old. How are you received in that environment? What about you made you palatable, acceptable, not the I hate to say it, but the weirdo freak old guy that's there around all these pretty co-eds?
Gosh, what a great question, because that is, how do you do that first? Well, what happened was that I hadn't been in a football culture in at least 40 years as a player. I had worked with the Dallas Cowboys with their scouting department years prior, but not as a player. And so I thought it would make sense if I could get back into a culture to see what that's like. So what I did was I got in touch with the local high school coach, asked if I could come out and participate in spring practice with the team. And he said, if it's okay with the city attorney, it's okay with me. They said, fine. So I went out there, and when I was there, I wasn't trying to, act like I knew anything, because frankly I hadn't. I'd not really been a kicker before. I had been a position player in high school. I did do backup kicking if it was needed, but I never got on the field. Anyway, one of the things that occurred while I was there is my young daughter was a freshman at the time, and she was mortified her white-legged old dad was out playing football with varsity. And one day after practice, she needed a ride home. As we came off the field, I'm with the kicker who I'd been kicking with for a while, introduced them, and when I did, I mentioned to the kicker that my daughter was very embarrassed that I was out here. Now, he was a 17-year-old young man, and typically they wouldn't either say anything, they might chuckle a little bit when I made that comment about being out there. But here's what he did. He narrowed his eyes at me and told my daughter there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Well, that's when I realized I had become his teammate. And the key to that was I was teachable. So I took that model with me when I went to Austin College. And gosh, I wasn't there 20 minutes before I had a nickname, and I was just brought right in to the group. No, and the nickname wasn't what you would expect, geezer, grandpa, whatever. They called me Tom Tom. They took my first name and the start of my last name. And to this day, if I'm walking across an airport and somebody yells Tom Tom, man, it pierces my heart, and it's just a really great feeling. And so that teaming happened real fast.
Do you think that your journey to faith had an impact on the different Tom Thompson who started out his college career and the Tom Thompson who came back to college?
Oh, by all means. I mean, I was before I was a Christian, I hated school. Actually, even after I was a Christian, I still hated it. I hated it so much that I didn't want to have to deal with college. So I hadn't finished any college by the time I was 45 years old when I decided to go back to school and earn a degree. And the purpose was I was wanting to get the scientific community to agree that martial arts was a good fitness activity. I was working at the Cooper Fitness Center in Dallas, Texas. And if you're familiar with Dr. Cooper, you know, his whole life has been about exercise, etc. So anyway, I was in a fitness staff meeting one day and made a comment. I thought karate was one of the best cardiovascular activities there was, and the assistant fitness director got in my face and said, "You can't prove that because there's no data." And I said, "Well, come to my class, I'll show you." And he said, "That still doesn't matter." So after that meeting, I went and did a lit search real quickly, and he was right. There was no data. So I knew that the only way I was going to change that mindset or to get people to agree with that notion is that I had some education. So I went back to school, got a degree, didn't matter what it was in, but it was in business at LeTourneau University. It's a very fine Christian school here in East Texas. Then I ended up getting my master's degree in kinesiology at the University of North Texas. Was looking to get work on a doctorate, but there were hurdles to that. I ended up going to Regent University and got the degree in organizational leadership. Anyhow, what happened was with my faith in terms of school, when I started, I just didn't want to be in school. And God just, you know, impressed upon me, said, show up, go one class at a time, and don't worry about it. And I trusted that that instruction. Well, when it came to working on my master's in kinesiology, I was 24 hours deficit of requirements to get in a program. I'd never had biology, I'd never had chemistry, anatomy, physiology, nothing. I'd had nothing. And but I applied, and as God would have it, they waived that requirement and put me right into the program. So that showing me something of God, that you're doing something God wants you to do. If you're willing to go the process He's laid out and not want shortcuts, it'll go faster. And I'll show you that here in a minute when we get to the doctoral stuff. So I finished there, and as I mentioned, I wanted to try to get my PhD in kinesiology. Well, North Texas didn't offer that. There's a school right next door called Texas Women's University. They offer that. And I really didn't want to make the change. The idea was I would get a PhD in higher education with a cognate in physical education to deal with that. Well, North Texas wanted me to go back to the College of Education and take 12 hours just to be considered for the program. Well, I wasn't going to do that. Then I had the director at LeTourneau, where I started teaching at LeTourneau University after I finished my master's. And he said, "Have you looked at Regent University?" I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Well, look into it." I did, and all they offered was the PhD in organizational leadership. And I thought, well, that's odd, why he would suggest that. Anyway, he did encourage me further, and I did apply, and I was stunned when I was accepted because there was not very many slots available. Well, as it turned out, that's really what God intended, because I've got such an odd academic background. The people I try to encourage and deal with, they don't care so very much for PhDs. They'd rather have someone that can do something, right, or can show them how to do something. And so my doctorate is an applied degree, much like an EDD or an MD or something like that. And it's in strategic leadership. So in reflection, I see why God had it all set up that way, because I understand business, I understand physical exercise, and then my ministry really is with leaders and people.
So Tom, as we look at several examples where you look back and you reflect and you say, God was doing this and God was doing that and God was doing that.
Hmm.
Where was your foundation of faith from? Who were the influencers that took you on this journey to own your own faith? Not the faith of your parents, not the faith of your grandparents, but to have your own faith, because that's really where we have to get to. And
Absolutely.
if we don't have ownership of that, then this vessel, we don't understand it being the temple of the Lord. And listen, you would not defile the temple.
Hmm.
You wouldn't think of it. You wouldn't think of walking into your church and dumping a bunch of dirty clothes and filth and waste products and emptying your trash can in the pews of the church, but you certainly do that to your body
Oh yeah,
uh,
sure. Absolutely.
because there seems to be a disconnect. So I want to know how you made the connection, because that's what's going to kind of show our audience how they too can make that same connection.
It's interesting to me that I didn't have no one in my family was really um, they were religious. My my mother's side of the family, they were Catholic. My dad's side was, I guess, Presbyterian, but they church wasn't important to them. And the only time I really heard about God was when my dad was mad. And so I didn't have friends that encouraged me. I just remembered kind of how I got saved. I knew I didn't want religion. I wanted to have a relationship with God. I overheard someone while waiting for a table at a restaurant talk about a place that they just teach the Bible, and it was a Dallas Theological Seminary offshoot church called Believers Chapel. And so I went, and when I went, I the person that was preaching, he didn't speak like I'd heard in the past, like a general talking to the troops. This was more like a corporal that was out there. He'd been shot in war, and he was coming back to tell you what it was like. And I really identified with that. And at that point in time, understood why God sent Jesus and what that was all about. So it was very personal. It was, and then after that, I just tried to go be good. I just tried to show up in church and go to Bible study and do things that I thought needed to happen. So for a long time, from the age of 24 to around 40, I would say I was just a person that was saved. Well, the big change came when I made the decision to make Jesus Lord of my life. There's where the 180 happened. And when it did, I really just let God lead me to where He wanted me to go. So I went to a church here in Dallas. It was called the North Church. It is since the pastor has retired and gone on. The church does not exist any longer. But my family spent 25 years there, and he helped me prioritize things in life: God first, family second, etc. But I realized that influence is everything, and you need to be careful who you're listening to, what they're saying. Just because it's popular doesn't necessarily mean that that's really it's. God tells us to test the spirits, and so wisdom has been the thing that has, I guess, uh, drawn me more and more to God, seeking wisdom, not wisdom itself, but just seeking God's wisdom in daily life and realizing it's moment to moment. It's not something you go and you collect it and then you have it. It's kind of like manna. Uh, you need to. It's every day, and God will show you wisdom every day, and if that's your focus, and that's what's helped me own it. That's what's helped me with my faith to realize that um, if it's His will, He'll finance it. He'll if you're injured, He'll fix you. I mean, if you're sick, He'll heal you. I mean, there's all that stuff will work out, but I'm still, some of my foundational scriptures are be still and know I'm God. Just, you need to just trust in me and love me.
Which sums up my exercise plan: be still and know that I am God. So you've made my case for me once again, my
Uh,
friend. We're
uh,
talking with Dr. Emmet C. Thompson. Tom, get a kick out of life. Expect the best of your body, mind, and soul at any age. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what I think is an overused but underapplied concept of intentionality. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Dr. Emmet C. Thompson, author of Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. Tom, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Eric.
Before we went to break, I mentioned the concept of intentionality. We actually hear so much about intentionality. It is a concept that's introduced in many venues, prayer life, church attendance, be intentional in our faith. It's a recurring theme, but not really something that people actually apply. And you address intentionality in your book as being a cornerstone of this entire journey to really aging well. We can have sharp minds. We can have endurance. My mother's 92 and plays golf 3 times a week. 3 times a week at age 92. All right. Why? Diet, exercise. Every year we renew her personal trainer. And so she has a personal trainer come in once a week and give her little exercises to do, strengthening shoulder, legs, just stretching, those kind of things. Not anything that is overtaxing to the frailty of aging, but she's certainly not frail in any way. She doesn't get sick, and she doesn't take medications. And her philosophy is to her doctor, why would I take the drugs you prescribed? You killed all my friends. So, you know, in many cases, it's the medicine which is killing us. And if we ate right, exercised right, had the right spiritual balance in this alignment, and this is what you talk about. So talk to me about intentionality. How does one become, just in general, not related to your book, not related to faith, but related to how does one become intentional? How does that process evolve in an individual?
Well, without taking stuff out of the book.
No, you can take stuff out of the book.
Well, the first thing I think is that's important for me anyway, is that you make an honest assessment of your situation and yourself, and the gap between you and the situation that you're trying to deal with. And frankly, it gets down to 2 things, and God has made it simple, frankly, in my view. We have to, in order to love ourselves, we have to be able to forgive ourselves. And quite often, people, they think that both of those notions are feelings, and frankly, they're not. They're choices, in my opinion. And so you've got to look at, okay, and I'll generalize this if you don't mind me doing so. And for me, what I use is what I call the field of poop as the metaphor. And you know, what is that about? Well, here's what it is. We're walking the path that God set out for us. And as we start taking this journey, we look off to the right or the left, and there's this shiny stuff, and it gets our attention, and we look off and we think, well, we'll go see what that is. So you start heading out, and the minute you get off that path, you're walking in that field of poop. Well, it's around your ankles. You don't see it, you don't smell it, you don't nothing. And eventually you get out there far enough, and it's up around your chin, and you go, oh my God, I'm in a field of poop. God help me. And we think he's going to come over and really just kind of pick us up and put us back on the path. And that's not been my experience. What I have seen that he does, he will just turn us around. And we have to begin walking back through that And if you've been walking it for a while, it's still up around your shoulder area. It's not quite gone all the way down. So you're still thinking, well, I'm still in this mess. And what we have to do is to, with intention, walk our way back to where he wants us to be in the first place. Now, why is that important? It's not just for us, Eric, in my opinion, it's for other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's so we can tell other people that are on their own life journey, well, you know what? When I was walking down this path, I saw that. And I went and looked to see what that was. And when I got there, it was awful. And it took me a good while to get back to this place. Well, it's the same kind of thing when people, when they want to get on a diet, for example. And I'd ask this question to you and your audience. If you could weigh exactly what you want to weigh this second, and a year from now you're 2 pounds heavier, would that be okay?
Well, ask me that question.
Yes, I'm asking
right.
you,
Yeah.
if you could weigh right now exactly what you want to weigh, and in a year from now you're just 2 pounds heavier, is that okay?
In the parameters in which I allow myself the normal body fluctuation, which is a plus or minus 2 on any given day, knowing that the variable is a plus or minus 2 because of water and the various factors, then my answer is yes, as long as I don't exceed the 2 pounds. So that's actually my parameter is plus or minus 2 for what I feel, not what the charts say, but for what I feel is my ideal weight based on how I carry myself, how I look, and how I feel.
That's good. But here's what most people do, Eric. They will accept that 2 pound weight gain for 20 years. And then they go, oh my gosh, look how heavy I am. And they try to take care of that in about 8 weeks with whatever diet thing they want to try to do. When the reality is, if all we will do is reverse the process, within the reality is when you change your diet, it's going to take 18 to 24 months for your body, your metabolism to respond to that, for you to actually have healthy weight loss. And you want healthy weight loss because it affects your internal organs, etc. My point of all of this with intentionality is, if you assess where you are, you forgive yourself for your past, you don't try to hurry up and make it happen quicker, but just do what you know God wants you to do. Within about 18 to 24 months, you will have what you have been seeking. But our culture anymore, it can't be that long. It can't take that long. And what I'm saying that, and the other thing is, people get the idea that the goals that they set can be nebulous. And I'm going to say no, they have to be crystal clear.
So that's the intentionality. Is we have to set the parameters for what it is that keep our eye on the prize, as Paul says, is that forgetting what's behind, I press on to the mark of the high calling for the prize in Messiah. It's the same kind of goal setting. And I can relate to that. I went to from my annual Medicare wellness check that they bug you, they email you until you finally go and get it. I noticed no noticeable change, no symptoms, nothing of anything. So I reluctantly went, and I told my doctor, "Listen, I'm not happy. I'm not at my ideal weight. The winter was a challenging time for being able to get out and do stuff. I actually moved into a tennis community so that I could play more tennis and be more active instead of just my walking plan. I moved from an apartment to a house so I wasn't walking the dog like I used to in the neighborhood." And he said, "Well, listen, you don't need to be at the weight you say you want. You're fine with this weight that you're at." And I said, "Statistically, based on your medical practice at 66, now 66 and a half years old, you're saying that's fine. It's not fine with me. I don't like the way my clothes fit. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the balance in my diet. Okay, I need to make changes for me. I'm not making changes for you or for your study. And so that's when I shared with you that in Israel I made a concerted effort that because I love the Israeli diet so much that I was going to be intentional about inventorying my breakfast, inventorying my lunch, inventory what I ate for dinner, and seeing that combined with the same 50 miles a week or within a 10-day period roughly that I walk now, that I will obtain my goal if I continue that diet. And listen, 16 times and the switch didn't flip, saying, this is the diet that agrees with you. This is the diet that's beneficial for you. Why don't you just eat this way when you get home? Well, because you go to the buffet and it's already made, because it's already there, it's already prepared. It's much easier to do because they've already done the preparation work. Now I have to prepare and become intentional. But I've done it now. We've been back for 8 or 9 days, and combined with the 10 days in Israel, I've dropped 10 pounds eating the right way. Heavy on vegetables, lots of fruit. And I used to have this misconception that fruit was sugar and that it was going to cause weight gain, but then I would eat bread or I would eat some other artificial carbohydrate that was not beneficial to my lifestyle. And so I began to understand that. But getting back to your book, you make it very clear that good judgment is learned through bad experience. You don't just talk about your successes, you talk about your failures. In a balanced view of our life, why is that important from a mind, from a body, and from a spirit or soul perspective? Why is that important that I have an honest assessment and a willingness to have transparency in my life?
Well, first of all, I would say that, when you were talking earlier about the 23andMe and people getting the genetic information, et cetera, and their identity, well, frankly, if their identity, if it's in Jesus, then they don't need any of that. That's right. The only identity that frankly matters. And so to me, I needed to understand, the work that God had Jesus do on that cross. What did it accomplish when he uttered those words, "It is finished"? It means that everything, as you know, everything that we need as individuals has been taken care of with what he did for us. And so I would want to just look at, for my own sake, life is a video. And if we step on the scales, or if we have a bad day, et cetera, it can be much worse at either end of the continuum. Those are snapshots. And God has already told us how the movie ends. And so there are scenes in film that are not very pleasant. Then there's scenes in film that, you just look at Forrest Gump and go through the spectrum of those feelings. But his life wasn't defined by Bubba Gump shrimp,
right,
or being in Vietnam. It was defined by the fact that he was searching for Jenny, and ours should be defined, in my opinion, as our searching for the will God has for our life. If you'll let me kind of mention something to you that encapsulates also the physical fitness piece. This is a study that we're planning to do. I can't tell you when it's going to occur, but it will happen. I told you before we started that we can quantify how far Jesus walked. We also know how much blood he lost when he was scourged. We also know how much the cross weighed. We also know how far he walked carrying the cross before somebody came to help him. So we know those things. And what we're going to do is get a very fit 33-year-old male. And Jesus was fit. As I said before, he walked 53 miles a week. He was a carpenter, so he had muscular strength and endurance. And then we're also going to get a 33-year-old unfit male. And we're going to do a blood draw. We're going to have them carry somehow the weight of the cross. We know how far Jesus walked before someone came to help him. The hypothesis of this study is that the fit man is going to get as far as Jesus got. The unfit male won't. And what that speaks to is unless you are physically fit, you will not be able to fulfill the purpose God has in your life. And we get the idea that, fit is about how we look or whatnot. No, it's the original Greek word for fit is useful.
Well, I think what you're going to find is the wood weighed the same amount as the wood that Isaac carried up the hill for his offering, that they were approximately the same age, and that the stories are basically the same stories. So it'll be very interesting because it will validate that in order to carry enough wood for a sacrifice, it's a 1 pound of wood to 1 pound of meat to cook something, but it requires 2 pounds per pound to consume by fire something in order to make the fire hot enough. So we can calculate that out, and we also can calculate out the weight of the cross, and we find that the calculations are comparable, if not identical, in these two stories. So it's really quite fascinating that you're doing that. In your book, you say to ditch the bucket list. Now, everybody thinks back to Jack Nicholson and who was it? Morgan Freeman. Was it Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, and I think James Gardner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was it. James Gardner and Jack Nicholson in this movie.
I never saw the movie. I just remembered it.
Right. So the movie The Bucket List kind of kick-started this whole move that you should have a list of things that you want to accomplish in your lifetime and places you want to go and things you want to do. The bucket list. And you say in the book, dump the bucket list. Right? So this kind of is antithetical to what the normal line of thinking is, as I know tons of people who travel with me to Israel every year that say this was at the top of my bucket list. So let's just say you can continue to have that as a -- goal in your life as the travel is with me, but dump the rest of your bucket list. All right? And thank you for helping me with that.
You bet.
But explain why we should dump the bucket list.
Well, first of all, the bucket list immediately implies one person. It implies the person that has that goal to go do whatever it is they want to do. What we talk about is setting quality of life goals, which are different because they include other people along the way. Eric, I couldn't have done the things that I did with kicking the football and everything else if I didn't have the help of a lot of people.
Right.
Just a lot of people. And so it's not just the fact that I went out there and kicked the ball. I mean, there was 2 years of preparation and then the year of actually being on the team and et cetera. And so what happens is another thing about a bucket list goal, when it's over, it's over. Well, I went to Austin College in 2008. I'm still there as a kicking coach and a professor. So, I mean, it's continuing on. And the goals that when you set them, if they're, again, with intentionality, not to be about you, but about other people, your life is more rich.
You know, you bring up such an interesting point. We set goals, and they're much more narrow if we set them for ourselves than what God is going to use. It's kind of an upside-down funnel. We try to stuff into a very small area some life goal, and if it's lined up with God, He takes it and He allows it to filter down, then He expands that same goal. Your desire was to become a kicker and to get a degree. two things, and you accomplished both of those things, but God expanded it so that you could actually be a coach and a teacher and embrace what it was that you had a passion for, and that is physical fitness and education and fighting with Chuck Norris and partying with Elvis.
Not fighting, not fighting.
Yeah. Just quite fascinating. So your book is entitled Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. How much of this is how to, how much is this of what to, and how much of this is mind over matter, and if you don't mind, it doesn't matter?
Great question. It was written to be a how-to, because there's so many things out there that are why-to that everybody can agree to. I mean, we go to church today and we can hear a message and we can get the why piece, like love your neighbor. Well, we get that. But you know, Eric and Tom might not do it the same way. And it's the how piece that people are just screaming for. I want to know how to do it, and what 2 or 3 things can I try that will I can adapt. Well, that's what this book does. It tells you the how to. There's some why to, and why is important because you don't want to just jump off into something. And the mental piece really gets back to, you know, what are you thinking about and what's your attitude about what you're thinking about. And a lot of people get the notion that, well, I want to do this or that, and the data shows that after about 8 weeks they quit. And generally they quit because it wasn't something that they were thinking. And frankly, Eric, long-term behavioral change is the result of 2 variables. You can pray about it all you want. You can wish about it all you want. There's all sorts of things, but you're not going to get there unless you do this first thing. You got to change the way you think about what it is you're going to try to do. Like if you're a smoker and you want to quit, you got to change how you think about that. And then after you do that, you've got to submit your will to that new way of thinking. And those 2 things, all they can do, they can't guarantee that you'll reach it. They just guarantee that you'll have the chance to reach it. And then after that, it's an everyday choice, because you're going to have good, bad, and ugly days. How do you handle those? You know, so there's a thinking piece right there. The how do I handle when I have a setback, when I thought God wanted me to do this? I remember when I was doing the kicking and I got injured, and I thought, well, why in the world am I out here? I'm, 60-something years old, and I've got a family and a little boy at home and this, that, and the other. I'm just going, gee whiz. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. When I was just at the bottom of despair, I could hear him saying, I made you for this. That's all I needed. I just needed to know from him that it doesn't matter how I feel. How do you think he felt when he saw his son carrying a cross? So that was encouraging to me.
So for our audience, mind, the book is broken into mind, body, and spirit. This is an incredibly important part. Soul. It is the, it's the war between the contrary nature, we call it the sin nature, or the contrary nature, and the Holy Spirit. And this battle that's being waged, where it defies physics, because 2 things can occupy the same space at the same time. And that battle, Paul acknowledges this principle when he says, I do what I ought not to do, and what I should do, I don't. And that's the framework in which we understand that the struggle with life is that there are distractions, there are speed bumps, there are brick walls, there are car wrecks, there are things in our life that can trip us up. But if we have the mind of God,
right,
it gives us the will of God, and if we have the will of God, then we're going to have the heart of God, and if we have the heart of God, we're going to have the relationship that's going to help us endure all these trials and tribulations, and we are going to press on to the mark of this prize that God has waiting for us. And the prize for you, the prize for me, all the same, it's salvation, eternal life, but living life well. You reach an age where you make a conscious decision, I want to live life well. And what does that look like? It looks like me being physically in the right condition, mentally in the right condition, spiritually in the right condition, feeding my body its nutrients. I actually just subscribed to a designer, a concierge vitamin company, that I filled out a medical questionnaire, and based on my age and lifestyle, they put together, rather than me buying a bottle of multivitamins, rather than me not getting this and not getting that and wondering, do I need all this and do I need all that? It's a concierge service for vitamins that picks out my morning vitamins and my evening vitamins, which ones I process while I sleep, which ones function better during your sleep state, which ones function better in your active state. Getting the things that you see, you know, turmeric and all these other things that I'd have to have a whole shelf full of stuff, and now I get a little pack that's curated for me. I just open the pack and I take those vitamins. I open the pack. And because I'm now becoming, as you state in the book, intentional about what I do with myself, and not haphazard. Just don't go buy this one manufactured multivitamin hoping that this is what your body needs. I filled out a 20-page medical and lifestyle questionnaire in order to subscribe to this service, and it's the same cost. It doesn't cost me a dime more, but I get exactly what I need. I'm fascinated by the fact that you can go and tweak and give them feedback if you're having skin reactions, if you're finding sensitivity, you tell them all this stuff. So it's just amazing that you've hit on this and that you can get a kick out of life and expect the best of your body, mind, and soul at any age. Dr. Thompson, Emmet C. Thompson, the second D.S.L. I have no idea what those mean, but it's just distinguished service leader in my mind, and servant leader in my mind, and that's the credentials you need to have. Tom Thompson, thank you so much for sharing your story with us on Revealing the Truth, life-changing guide to how to live and get a kick out of life. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
It's been a
blessing. Thank you.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.